Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at www.chemicalcityreeds.com.
AC/DC Reeds is a one-woman bassoon reed shop in Minnesota run by Ariel Detweiler, producing over 1,200 reeds per year. Selling beginner and advanced level bassoon reeds, AC/DC Reeds are hailed by customers for their even intonation, ease of response in all registers, warm tone quality, and strong low register. Every reed is made from tube cane processed in-house to Ariel's specifications using Rigatti or Lavaro cane and a Rieger 1A shape. You'll also find bassoon-themed gifts in the shop, including greeting cards, stickers, artistic prints, and the ever-popular Blackwing bassoon pencil. Make sure to follow AC/DC Reeds on Instagram, where Ariel posts artistic photos and educational stories about her everyday experiences with reed making. AC/DC Reeds is proud to sponsor Double Reed Dish, sharing positive and uplifting interviews to inspire and connect the bassoon community around the world. Find AC/DC Reeds at acdcreeds.com or at retailers like Chemical City Double Reeds, Midwest Musical Imports, or Reed Supplies Canada. Try out AC/DC Reeds today and let the reed do the work.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
A podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them. Halloween season, Jack.
It's October, officially.
Oh my God, it's the best time of year. You know what? Christmas, I'm not about it. Halloween, I'm into it. I love it.
Well, since you are Jewish, I think it's okay that you're not about Christmas. I don't know if that's going to shock anybody.
Hot take, not into Christmas. Well, this is the best time of year, and we are ready to announce our 4th annual Double Reed Dish Halloween reed decorating contest. Jackie, this has been my favorite project of ours. Every year, every time it comes up, it is the most epic. Every year it gets better, it gets kookier, it gets scarier. I cannot wait.
Absolutely. Yes. This is I agree. My favorite project that we do. And you know what's funny is I think this is when we have the eyes of the non-double reed world the most, because I have non-double reed colleagues who talk to me about oh my gosh, I saw this entry, I saw that entry. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. The this, the that. And this year the prizes are bigger and better than ever before. But let's start off. How are you going to win the prizes? The rules. The main part of each entry has to be an oboe or a bassoon reed. So it has to be the focus point. Your decorations should be Halloween inspired. You can draw, you can paint, you can put objects on the reed. We have had animation, backdrops, elaborate dioramas, and
we've had things in motion.
Yes, if you want an idea of how hard people go on our Instagram and scroll back through old entries, and you will see that people bring it. Every entry must have a title. Don't forget that. We will email you and be like, what's your title? You have to have a title. And be creative, but keep it tasteful. Keep it tasteful. Appropriate for all ages here. And then you just take a picture of it. You email it to us at doublereeddish@gmail.com on or before October 15th. And the voting begins on the 16th. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
And then we will announce, did you say this already? We will announce the winners on Halloween.
Winners are announced on Halloween proper, and you have a chance to win. That's right. I left out the most important part, the prizes. Okay, so we have 4 total winners. popular vote oboe, popular vote bassoon, podcast choice oboe, and podcast choice bassoon. So we retain a little bit of control.
Oh, I mean, we have to have some joy.
Absolutely. This is a podcast.
Our amazing sponsors, Barton Kane, Chemical City Reeds, AC/DC Reeds, and Oboe Chicago, have all donated to these prizes. Each winner is going to receive a $50 gift card to Chemical City Reeds, a $50 gift card to Barton Kane, a Blackwing bassoon pencil / greeting card bundle from AC/DC Reeds, and our oboe popular vote is going to receive an oboe reed drying rack from Oboe Chicago. We've seen pictures. It's beautiful. Or a t-shirt from the Double Reed Dish merch store. So these are the biggest prizes we've ever had. It is going to be epic.
And listen, I have students, they're always, I don't have money for cane. I don't have money for supplies. And it is expensive. I would never invalidate that it is expensive. You know what is not expensive? Taking an old crappy reed that is currently in your case, having some fun. And by the way, I should say we allow group entries too. We have had studios enter together. We've had friends and collaborators enter together. And yeah, it does not cost anything to enter this contest. We all have no shortage of crappy reeds. So just decorate some, have some fun, send it on over, and you never know what's going to happen. Come on now.
Okay, so in honor of our Halloween season starting, we decided that we would ask the listeners about their favorite scary pieces for double reeds, and we got some good responses.
Well, for what's your scariest, because this could be taken in more than one way, and listeners took it in different ways, right? Like, what's the scariest piece you have ever had to execute because it's terrifying to do so? And then what literal scary pieces? So either direction, what's your response, Glee?
I have a funny / embarrassing story about this. I think I've told it on the podcast before, so this might be a new one. Last season, I got to play second oboe in New World Symphony by Dvorak. And we all know that Dvorak's second oboe parts are scary, low and soft. So we were getting to a part where it was going to be low and soft. And I was like, okay, Galit, you're going to do it. You're going to play real soft. And I start playing and I'm like, dang, girl, you're playing so soft. It's so soft. I was like patting myself on the back while I'm playing. So the conductor stops everyone, and in front of the whole orchestra, he goes, second oboe, did you bring your English horn? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, I'm just wondering if you played that part on English horn, would it be softer? And I was like, what? And he was like, I don't know. I'm just kicking some ideas around. It just needs to be soft. Not softer, Jackie. Soft.
Soft.
Period.
Listen, it's low oboe. You get what you get and you don't get upset.
And I was like, time of death, 7:13 p.m. So my answer is and will forever be second oboe parts in Dvorak symphonies.
Fair.
And concertos. But I'm also a real sucker for a jump scare. So like Hide and Surprise Symphony gets me every time.
Or Firebird Infernal Dance.
Yes, every time. I jump every time.
So funny. So funny to play it and like watch the audience.
Yeah. What about you?
Mine will always be the Barrio Sequenza.
Oh God, yes.
A young woman began on a journey that she did not know what lied ahead.
You were Little Red Riding Hood walking into those woods.
Honestly. And I thought I was at grandma's house playing a unaccompanied modern masterpiece, and it was a wolf. It was a wolf dressed up as Luciano Berio. Yeah, I am proud that I pulled it off. Literally the scariest thing I've ever had to do. It's so long. You have to circular breathe the entire time. It's technically extremely difficult. You have to learn a million new fingerings. And because you have to circular breathe for such a long time, I literally had to do the equivalent of altitude training where I got my brain, like I would be like, okay, I will, regardless of how long I can circular breathe, like if I could start off doing it for that long, you actually can't because your brain is not used to it and you can faint. So it's like, okay, I have to circular breathe for a half page and get used to that. And then for a page, for page and a half, 2 pages, and you would get splitting headaches afterward because of the oxygen deprivation.
Yeah, it's like exactly like altitude.
Yes.
Poisoning.
Exactly. Yeah, poisoning. Yeah, not training, poisoning. So yes, it's one of those things I look back and I'm like, I should feel proud. I primarily have post-traumatic stress and I will never play it again. And because I wrote an article about the process, co-wrote an article, Christian Schillinger, about the process of learning it, I will have young musicians reach out to me and be like, do you have advice? Do you have this? Do you have that?
Yeah, I have a lot of advice. I have a lot of advice. Don't.
So I don't know. Maybe someone's listening going, you're belly aching, but you know what? Again, it's my podcast. That's the scariest piece What do our listeners say?
Oh, so much. Okay. Chris says this full orchestra piece in undergrad, it was a student composition that was completely composed from a 12-tone row of quarter tones, complete with 30-second notes. I was playing English horn and I have no memory of how I actually survived that experience.
That does sound pretty scary. 12-tone of quarter tones. So that's a missed opportunity because they could have done a 24-note row.
Is that it?
Because quarter tones divides the octave into 24 parts.
I don't.
12. It's fine. It was just a little modern music joke. Yes, Chris, that sounds absolutely terrifying. Dylan agrees with you. Any triple P, low B naturals ever. # Tchaikovsky. So Dylan's a bassoonist, but still double reed soft playing. Like, what do you want? We're not the clarinet.
Thank you. If you play the clarinet, get out of here. Just kidding.
Stop listening. Turn it off. The worst is when you have to do something quiet with them or after them, they come or leaning so into them. Soft. It's like you're just showing off.
Stop it.
Tell you what, give me a true secco staccato and then I'll be impressed, you clarinets.
Marina says Godzilla eats Las Vegas for wind band. We even had to scream.
I love that.
I don't know this piece. I need to find it.
I just scream even when not prompted by composers. So
is that how you start your day, with a coffee and a scream?
Well, you know what is interesting? I wrote my dissertation about the Goodbye to Lena Concerto for Bassoon and Low Strings. And in the fourth movement of that piece, she has this figure that says scream. And I studied every existing recording of it. And some people interpret that as like the bassoons trying to scream, some sort of like bellowing thing, maybe like pitch bend, multiphonic. Lots of people interpret it different ways. But one recording actually interprets it as a human scream.
Yes.
And so it's like this cadenza, and then all of a sudden it's and on that note, happy October. Thank you and good night. Specializing in the finest assortment of oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and their accessories, RDG Woodwinds serves musicians around the world. Their employees are all professional musicians who have a deep knowledge of the products that they sell. RDG's repair shop has an international reputation with a combined 100 plus years of service among the 5 repair technicians. Plain and simple, RDG provides excellent products and fabulous customer service. Visit them at rdgwoodwinds.com. They look forward to working with you.
Consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com.
We are so happy to welcome to Double Reed Dish Leyla Zamora, third bassoon and contrabassoon of the San Diego Symphony. Welcome, Leyla.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I love to start by asking our guest how they started playing their instrument. So, how did you start playing the bassoon?
Well, I went to a magnet school, high school, or middle school and high school. And actually, the cool thing was to play an instrument. You are cool if you play an instrument, which is very unusual in our high schools or school. So, and I had a crush on an oboist, so that helped a lot. And also that helped me decide what I wanted to play. So I joined the band in the orchestra in the high school. And then I auditioned for the youth symphony, where all the people from my magnet school were playing in the youth symphony, which is a conservatory, what you will call now El Sistema, but in Costa Rica. So I started bassoon there.
How did you come to decide that it was something you wanted to pursue professionally? Can we hear about getting serious on the bassoon?
Yeah, I mean, I played for 1 year and then I graduated really young from high school. I graduated at 15.
Wow.
I started at three at elementary school, so I graduated at 15 years old. So I asked my parents, since I was a year ahead or 2 years ahead, that if I could spend a whole year just taking private lessons, because I was thinking that might be something I wanted to pursue. And and they say yeah. And I said, I just need a rest from school. I just want to see if I can do this. And that's what I did. So, and because I started a little late, I started at 14, then I knew if I didn't just focus on one whole year to try to make up, I wouldn't make it. And they were very nice and supportive. So yeah, that's how it happened.
Can you talk us through what happened next in terms of your training and educational journey?
Yeah, after that, I joined, well, after that year, I joined a paid youth symphony in Colombia. They hired me as one of the bassoonists, and I played there in the youth symphony, National Youth Symphony of Colombia. And and meanwhile, I was trying to apply for schools, and I have heard of this bassoonist Valery Popov in Russia, and fantastic player. And so I thought maybe the Russian school was an option, and I applied to it, and I got a full scholarship. So from Colombia, I left to Russia, and I studied in the conservatory, in the Tchaikovsky Conservatory, for 2 years. With teacher, his name is Roman Pavlovich Teryohin, and fantastic teacher. Yeah, and then after that, I had to come back to my country to receive treatment because I was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer.
Wow.
At 17, so I just had to come back to get the treatment. But I still kept playing and practicing. So after the treatment, I got into the National Symphony in Costa Rica, and I played with them for 3 years. After that, the opportunity presented that I could finish my bachelor's at Baylor University. And my teacher in Russia had died, so I just didn't want to come back because I really like him. And so I finished my education, my undergrad at Baylor University with Jennifer Speck, who was also a very doting teacher, devoted, wonderful, just what I needed, and she had a very structured type of teaching, and I needed that. So.
Leyla, your story is incredible already. I have several follow-up questions. But I guess the first, as I listened, the thing that came to my mind was how much you traveled at such a young age. First Colombia and then Russia and the
Yeah.
United States. And I, travel internationally on vacation and sometimes get overwhelmed. And you were so young. And I just wonder if you could tell us a bit about those experiences, the culture shock, and if we have people listening who are considering becoming international students or who are maybe intimidated by pursuing opportunities in other parts of the world, like what advice would your experience give them?
Yeah, I think, well, I had an advantage because my father worked as an accountant for an airline. So he always instilled us, to travel. Travel is good. Travel opens your mind, like he was just totally encouraging. And so when I went to Colombia, it was very familiar because we have been there many, many times. But when I went to Russia, the thing that I found out is that there is always somebody who will help you.
Mm.
And if you ask for help, and it was a total cultural shock. And of course, I didn't speak the language, but they have you immediately in language school. They put you immediately in language school and your bassoon lessons. That's how they start. You just take bassoon lessons and go to language school, and after a while then you can go to the conservatory and take the other classes, and maybe piano or harmony. But the way that they do like harmony and the theory classes is very with a piano, so you actually don't need to talk a lot, because as long as you know do re mi fa sol la si do, that's all you need to know. And with the bassoon lessons, it was just very natural. Like I understood by example. My teacher play again, and Italian, lots of Italian. Progreso, ma non tanto, and like all kinds of words, funny words that he invented, but I understood. But after a while, because you're so young, you start understanding the language. You learn the language very fast.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot say I speak Russian now, but I can understand. I can read, but I don't speak very well at all. But I can read Cyrillic, and it was a very interesting. And it was it was still a communist country. It was before the perestroika, so it was very interesting. Foreign people were treated really well and with a lot of care. I had 2 surgeries there because of the diagnosis. That's how I discovered it. I just felt something in my breast, and I'm like, I'm going to a doctor, and they're like, you need to do a surgery right now. So I had a surgery in Russia, and they were like fantastic and very careful. And because I was still a minor, so they treat me really well. So I don't know if it was luck, but I feel like if you go with the right attitude and don't expect a lot, then you will have more than what you expect.
Well, it just struck me, I guess, relevant to the bassoon, but like to face breast cancer at such a young age and to have it interrupt your study and to just have to, consider such a significant diagnosis at such a young age. It seems like that demonstrates an incredible amount of resilience that ultimately you were able to, continue and go on to pursue your path. And I don't know if you want to talk any more about that experience, or if it gave you any particular perspective going through something like that, period, but also, so young.
Yeah, I mean, I think my motto in life has been survival of the species. I always say to myself, survival, survival. I go into survival mode right now. If I cannot sleep well and I wake up and I have a ton of things, very important things, I'm like, survive the day, like
Mm-hmm.
always. So I had the same attitude, and I wanted to play bassoon so badly. Like that was not my bassoon was not my first choice. I thought maybe harp or trombone, but they were like, "Oh, you are too little. You cannot reach all the strings." And then I had braces, and so so then they say, "But there are openings in the bassoon studio," and William Dietz was the teacher in Costa Rica. He went with the Corps, with the Peace Corps. So he was my first teacher.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was fantastic, and I loved it so much, and I wanted to play it so much that even when I was like recovering and I had like a session of chemotherapy and I didn't feel, I mean, playing bassoon was like the escape of thinking about the disease. And I actually, I can say, I don't remember, but I don't think that I ever thought that, I mean, negative thoughts were not a possibility. Like, I just always thought I was going to get through this. And I did. I mean, I've had like close encounters throughout my life with cancer, but so far so good. And I'm just gonna take advantage now that I'm healthy, and until I'm not. But for now, I better enjoy life because I wanna live. I always say I wanna live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's an incredible attitude and mindset. And
Yeah.
the fact that you were able to cultivate that so young is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess my father had something to do with it. He was like, well, it looks impossible, but let's try to do it. We'll travel to the United States and we didn't speak any English, and he will be like, I don't know how he did it, but so I thought I could do it also, I guess by example, But
That's also a really hopeful attitude and a
Mhm.
really positive attitude.
Well, I mean, that's all you have to continue, right? You don't want to give up. That's you don't want to give up, and try not to think of the negative or the possibilities of not working out. I mean, at least give it a try. So you're like, okay, I try.
So, walk us through your career after Baylor.
Well, after Baylor, I auditioned for Rise, and I got in, but I had a boyfriend, and I don't know if you want to include this in but I had a boyfriend, and he is like, I'm going to Chicago, and if you want to pursue this relationship, we have to go to Chicago together. So I told Ben Kamens, bye bye. And he's like, no, no, you regret it. And, but, I ended up studying at DePaul University with Bruce Granger, who was the assistant in the Chicago Symphony.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic player. And I learned so much from him in only 1 year, because he got AIDS and died but also after my first year I got my first job, so I didn't finish my master's in DePaul. I got the Memphis Symphony principal bassoon, and it was a very big shoe to fill, because in that orchestra the previous bassoonist had been John Clauser, who's now Cleveland principal, Danny Matsakawa, who's principal in Philadelphia, and the latest was Sue Heinemann, who's now principal in National. So I couldn't believe I got the job, and I was then after that I bet, okay, I have to work really hard to try to make, to try to at least be decent, and so I got my first job in between the master's degree. So then I transferred all the credits to Memphis State just to finish my master's, have a master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I play in the Memphis Symphony for 10 years. And I met my husband there, who was the principal viola, and we got married and had great 10 years in the Memphis Symphony, play all the repertoire that you could wish for, multiple times. And I was very happy. But I always loved the contrabassoon. So I told my husband that maybe I was thinking of taking up the contrabassoon and retiring, in another job. Little did I know that indomitable beast that was the contrabassoon, it's like, it's another thing on its own. But I decided to start taking auditions in contra, and I was always in the finals, but I didn't. So I tried to play for people, and and a lot of people, if you ask for help, they will help you. So I had people like Juan de Gomar, who is a fantastic contrabassoon player, and Juan de Gomar, Mark Romatz also was fantastic, and Roger Soren were fantastic people who helped me a lot about the contra, because I didn't even know how to hold a contrabassoon. And so I started to take auditions, and finally I got San Diego Symphony. And I feel like it took me like a good 7 to 10 years to be like totally comfortable on the contrabassoon, because it was just learning another instrument on its own. And I thought I was retiring, but no. Okay.
Wait, so it seems pretty unusual for somebody to be a principal bassoonist and then go to contrabassoon. Is that just an ignorant oboist talking?
No, it's the truth. Everybody wants to be principal bassoon. But I am more of a team player. I feel like I'm more of a follower. Okay, like I am more. And also I was like, well, I'm just thinking about my future. Would I be able to handle, But I have had opportunities like lately, like maybe 2 years ago. I was very very close to be in Atlanta as an assistant principal. But I just realized that I love playing my position, third bassoon. I think I specialize in third bassoon excerpts now. I'm like the specialist. I love low bassoon very much, and I don't know. I feel like I'm happier, and I love the moments where I just sit and I don't have like Beethoven 5. It's only contrabassoon in the last movement, and I just sit for 3 moments. I consider myself the luckiest person. I have the best seat in the house, just listening for 3 moments, and my amazing colleagues. So, I mean, for me, life is good. I could die at that moment. Let's put it that way. So I really love playing low bassoon. I have to practice a lot because I'm not super talented or that talented. So I am a practicer. So I have to practice always and keep informed.
Can we hear a little bit more about the process of pursuing the contrabassoon in terms of orchestral auditions? Orchestral auditions are a topic that our listeners really like to hear about anyway, but I'm always so fascinated by contra auditions because it feels like you have to show mastery of two very different things in really short succession. And while I'm not a contra specialist or even really a contra player at all, I have heard multiple people say that the key to success in contra positions is being an excellent tenor bassoon player, because a lot of times people will neglect that part. And so anyway, yeah, I guess I'd just be interested in hearing your experience in preparation, like dividing your time, although had already been principal for a decade. So maybe, you had that really solid foundation. And yeah, what did that preparation look like?
Yeah, you're totally correct. You need to be proficient in bassoon. There is no, if you're not proficient in bassoon, if you cannot play Marecho Figaro, then in bassoon, then you don't take the contra audition because they are gonna ask you for Marecho Figaro. and yes, I was proficient in bassoon, but I still had to practice because taking an audition, you have to get the audition mojo into the audition mode. Okay, it's not just like, okay, I'm gonna take an audition. Even though you can play the excerpts, and no, it's a state of mind. It's life consuming. I mean, your life is totally has to be devoted to that, and in a way, you have to make yourself fall in love with what you're practicing. Because if you're like, I have to play this again, this excerpt, no, it's not gonna work. For a while, I hated the Mozart, like for a while, and then when I was just starting to take the audition, I loved the Mozart. I would like the Mozart concertos, like I'm not gonna say the word, but it's just like the best thing ever. And then the excerpts, you have to take them you have to consider them as songs, little songs that you're playing.
Ooh.
And for instance, the Brahms, um, violin concerto.
Mm-hmm.
The oboe has the solo, and you're just filling in, but you have to make a melody like you're playing a counterpoint or something like that. You cannot just be like ba, ba, or like just playing the notes. You have to make everything music, convert everything in music. And yeah, you have to practice, and you have to divide your time into the two instruments. And playing contra is very tiring for the embouchure, so I would practice first bassoon. Like right now, I'm preparing for a festival, and it's a very difficult music. It's 20 pieces, and they are all new music. So, and very challenging, very, very, very challenging music. So I'm dividing the bassoon first, and then the contra at the end. But you have to practice equally. So for auditions, they are gonna ask you a lot of bassoon, and you have to be able to produce. And they are gonna ask you Marecho Figaro many times,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be able to nail it every time. So you have to practice that, playing it many times, and try to nail it as much as you can. And there are periods where I just play really slow just to figure out the fingerings, and there are periods where I just perform. And then there are periods where I just practice stamina, where you just go through the whole list. Because in the San Diego Symphony, for instance, in my audition and all the auditions that I have been a panel, in the panel, they have at the end for the finals, they ask for the whole list. 45 minutes. 45
Wow.
minutes
Oh
of
my
playing
God.
non-stop. Any audition, I've been in the bass audition, I've been in a percussion audition where they ask all the instruments, all the excerpts. So this might be like an hour of playing, and for every candidate, and that you have to have the mind. So it takes, I mean, preparation is mental and physical, and you cannot be distracted. You have to, and you have to make yourself love this and make it. So how do you love it? Make it into musical little excerpts. What's the music in this excerpt? So it's a little melodies that you play for people.
Can you tell us about your day of winning the San Diego Symphony audition?
Okay, so so this is a great lesson. Never give up. Okay, so I know. I mean, you can make little mistakes, but it's like Michael Jordan says: if you miss one, just don't think about it. Don't dwell. Keep trying, because they know your product and they know that you're good. So you can make little mistakes, but they have to be cracks, or not major mistakes. So the day of the audition, I played the preliminary, and for San Diego Symphony, I had taken an audition 3 months before. I was in the finals with another person, and they didn't give the job to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 months later, they opened it again, and my colleagues were like, well, they already saw you and they didn't like you. And I'm like, I'm going to go. I feel like I have to go again. And I was in good shape. So I just prepare even more, and try to remember what I didn't do well, or why wouldn't they like it. Recorded myself a lot, because you're your best teacher. And it's horrible, because recording yourself is horrible. You're like, oh my God, the sound, oh my God, this, and nothing sounds good, but but you will improve little by little. So I went the second time, and I played the preliminar, and then I passed to the second round, and I was playing and I missed a note. The note didn't come, and I just thought it was an important note. So I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm leaving. I left the hall. I packed my things. I left the hall. Luckily, I was staying in a hotel across the street. I packed my contract. I called the airline, and then when I had changed my flight, I had the contract packed, because I packed it on another box. And then I got a call, and they say, Leyla, we're waiting for you for the finals. Where are you?
Oh, God.
And I'm like, and I called the airline, and I begged, and then I rushed. But the good thing is I was across the street. If I had taken an Uber to a hotel, I didn't know I had passed, because I didn't think, I thought that note was really important, and I missed it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that's what Michael Jordan says. He says, like, the product. They are looking at the whole product.
Mm-hmm.
And if you miss a note, it's not. And being in a panel, now I realize that, yeah, that's true. Like, sometimes they have like little cracks, and we just had the horn audition, and horn, they crack, but it didn't deter from like being a fantastic player, like the guy who got the job. Even though maybe he had like a little here and there, but so anyway, so I went to take the finals, but I didn't have, at that point, I was just so elated, and I feel like I was just like, I'm just gonna go for it. And we had a rehearsal with the pianist to play the Mozart concerto, and I was just so happy that I had a piano, and we were playing the Mozart concerto with a piano. So I just came, and I was like smiling, and I was like so happy to be there, and surprised at the same time. I didn't have time to like really get nervous, and then I played the Mozart concerto, and then all the excerpts, and I cracked one note, and they all laugh, and they ask. At that point, the curtain was down. It's no more. We have curtain until the very end, but at that point, the curtain was up, and they all laughed because I cracked the last note of the Ravel. And they asked me, "Would you like to play that again?" Now, when they ask you that, make sure you nail it, because So yeah, I went and played it, and everything was fine. And then they came and gave me the news, and I left. I was so happy. I like, thank you. I left. And then again, they called, Leyla, you didn't tell us if you were going to take the job. But I was like, it just was an amazing thing, and
Wow.
it was one of the happiest days of my life. And just moving to a new place, and I really like California. So I mean, but I love Memphis, so but I knew I wanted to do something different, different projects, and so I've been really happy. I think I'm gonna stay here. Some people they wanna keep going, and I just have everything I like here. My husband plays in the orchestra. Sometimes he has contracts. Sometimes he plays as a freelancer. So so I am very content with being here.
Mhm. Do you have any, you gave several wonderful pieces of advice in that last answer, but having served on many audition panels, are there any other insights that you've gained? It's kind of like in higher ed, being on a
Yeah.
search committee, you learn like, oh, I wish I could apply again, having served on all these search committees.
Yeah.
Do you have any other insights you could offer?
Actually, I do. You know, it's so funny. We had the percussion audition. 124 people showed up, and they had to play all the instruments. So each candidate was like 40 minutes. We had to listen for 4 days, something for the preliminaries only. But
Wow.
but you know, the simple. Just my advice is play what's on the page. Play what's on the page. And if you play what's on the page and follow everything that each measure says, you are ahead by 10% already. It's amazing. Like we had a percussion playing that a percussionist playing Lieutenant Kije,
Mhm.
and they have something like really simple, something like that, and none of them did what's on the page. Like, well, I mean, the one who won, you know, probably 10 of 124 percussionists, and that has been the lesson, and has been the thing that I have noticed. The more people don't play what's on the page.
Mhm.
So and I had written something else, and another thing is don't let don't let yourself get into yourself. Don't let those little gnomes or cockroaches or little voices in your mind get in your head. And somebody says something really, a little girl says something really funny. It says, tell the negative committee inside your head to sit down and zip it up. Okay? So remember that I always say, tell the negative committee in your head to sit down and zip it up. Okay? For the moment of the audition. Because those little voices, I was talking to a psychiatrist. Actually, he works with serial killers. But he said that those little voices, which I asked him, you know, do you have gnomes? Do you know, like the gnomes? I call them the gnomes. Um, they are always sitting in here, and they're like, you're gonna make a mistake. You're gonna make a mistake. And you're like, he said, they are very good for your improving. They are like they keep you in check with like getting better. But there are points that you have to tell them you have to silence them.
Mhm.
So I basically, you can leave them in a corner. I left them in a corner of the hall. I said, I'll come and pick you up. And I did that. Verbally, he told me that psychiatrist who works with serial killers, he was my host for a festival that I did, and he said, just leave them somewhere and then do what you have to do, and then come and pick them up because they are important in your life. They are like self checks, you know. And I did that. I left them in a sign, a stop sign, and I said, stay here. I'm gonna take my finals, and and I think it helped just going through mentally to that. But you need to silence them, and silence yourself, and stop self criticizing at that moment. Just and also put the work. If you do the work, um, then you say, I did the work and I deserve. You just have to tell yourself little things. And I go through this all the time because I get really nervous. I still get really nervous of performing. And so I have to tell me different things at different times just to go through stuff. But yeah, basically play what's on the page, and then put the work, and then silence your little gnomes.
I love that.
Did he tell you which serial killers?
Yeah, no, it's they live in Oregon and they just work with serial killers. It's a skill on their own because they say they are very cunning and very smart, and so that was very interesting to have them as a host in a festival.
Music
And
will
then my
take you
other
all sorts
host-
of places.
My other hosts in the other festival that I did, Brit, they were forensic pathologists. So you can, I know, it's amazing the things that you hear,
Would you, because before we started recording, you had mentioned that you do a little bit of teaching, but that you have a very unique studio. So would you be
Yeah.
willing to talk to us about your private studio?
Yeah, I don't like to teach a lot because, like I told you, I'm a practicer.
Yeah.
I have to practice a lot. I have to practice bassoon and I have to practice contra. So I don't have a lot of talent. So I have to really keep my playing. So I cannot afford to take a lot of students. And so basically, the amount of students that I have is like five the most. And I like to take interesting students. Sometimes I don't take like really young, like kids, because they don't practice and it's just frustrating, and the little brats. I don't know if you can say that. But anyway, so I have a student who has dementia. Maybe that's not the diagnosis, but he's losing his and the neurologist told him as long as he plays bassoon, and I have to work with him very patiently. Like, he would not remember to repeat 6 bars, but it's very interesting because he remembers some things and he has selective memory, so it's very fascinating. I also have another student who is the CEO of a corporation that developed a drug that you can put in a patient who had a heart attack. So he's very, and he did study with Herzberg when he was very young. So he's very into the bassoon, and he actually just went to McQuigley. He was there, and he's just very fascinating to teach this person because of the way that the lessons go. And I have to have a lot of patience with older people, but I find it fascinating. And I have one kid that crosses the border, and I don't charge this kid because I don't think maybe that kid can afford it, but so I barter because it's important for them to see the value in things. So I want him to bring me something for the lesson, So sometimes I get a bag of beans, sometimes I get a carafe, sometimes I get, a little souvenir. I don't care what this person brings me, and really it's not, I'm not looking to get anything, but I want them to know that somebody's teaching them and it's their time, and there is a value in me teaching this person. So, and then I have 2 high schools, and they are great players. They are great little players. They play in the youth symphonies here. But basically that's the studio. But I like to take interest in people That's basically I like to work with um, I like to work with kids that don't have everything, you know. So I've gone to Indonesia and worked with a youth symphony, started a brand new youth symphony where the kids took boats and buses and walked for 8 hours to take the audition for the symphony. And we also did another project in Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania, with the kids of the Safaricom Youth Symphony. And these kids, they start walking like at 2 a.m. So when they get to the place, they get fed, and then they have a rehearsal, and then they have a nap time because they woke up at 2 o'clock, and then they have lessons. And so I like to spread the joy of music, and I can only do it with bassoon because I don't play another instrument, but it's good for my soul. I feel very fulfilled. Maybe other people would like to have a big job and other things, but I don't know. I guess I'm very happy with what I have.
Can we hear a bit about the well, and I think San Diego Symphony is a big job.
Totally.
But
1,000%.
but can we hear about you as a reed maker? What are reed habits for a professional who has to maintain two different instruments? What reed advice do you have for us?
Well, my reeds are very unusual because since I started in Russia, it's been very hard to adjust smaller reeds in the United States. So I teach my students an amalgamation of styles, including the Herzberg and my own teacher, which Hugh Cooper, Jennifer, and some of the William Winstead, and William Dietz, like something of the three, some little things. What I like about Herzberg reeds is that they are very consistent. Like the method is very consistent, and I feel like kids need a structure when I teach reeds. For me, I have to constantly be making reeds, and people say, "Oh, I have this contra reed for 30 years," but my contra reeds don't last probably the most 2 weeks because we play 3 programs a week, so we have to be constantly playing. And the same thing with the bassoon and maybe the saliva or something, but I have to be making reed. I just like a point in the reed that it feels like new and that it vibrates, and I know when I have crossed that point in the reed, and I don't throw it away because sometimes I practice with a reed until it's dead, like if I have to just practice some fingerings or something. So I give opportunity. All the reeds deserve love. So I make a reed, and even if a reed is not great, then I separate them into practicing reeds and second bassoon reeds. I have specific reeds that I save for, like, also Sprach Zarathustra, which is the equivalent of the Rite of Spring for a bassoonist, but for contra, you have to start with that note. So this reed that I have is like, you look at it and it already vibrating. It's like, so I have it. I only use it for that. So I have reeds like that. I have reeds for very high. If I'm gonna play something very high in the contra, which there are very high things like Adams Symphony No. 1, Chamber Symphony, it gets to a high E flat in the contra. So you need like a reed that plays that. So sometimes I make reeds and I save reeds but I have to be constantly making reeds and adjusting. And of course, I have to be in a third bassoon. I play low all the time. In Wagner, always very low, or in the operas. I need very responsive reads. And that has been a learning experience because playing principal, yes, we play low, but not that much. And sometimes you can make a read work, but yeah, but for third bassoon, you have to have a low read. And I don't know, I'm sure, I mean, not, I'm sure, like, I know there are people that can play one reed up and down, and I have to make reeds for what I am playing. I wouldn't play Pagliacci with the same reed that I play Rite of Spring. And this is another thing about auditions for contra and for bassoon. You have to be that proficient because one day I opened the folder in my of the symphony, and I had Rite of Spring, and I thought they were mistaken because I'm the third bassoon and contra. So I'm like walking to the library, and then they're like, no, they are playing opera. You have to play Rite of Spring. So even though I'm a third bassoon, I had to play high, very high. And so at least 4 concerts a year, I have to play principal because the orchestra splits, and the first bassoon and the second bassoon play in one orchestra and play for educational concerts. So you have to keep your chops, and you have to be proficient in bassoon. So, that's very important.
Would you share with us a favorite memory of a past performance?
Well, my favorite memory is I was the last guest for the bassoon reed in the University of Arizona with William Dietz, and before he announced his retirement. So, and we got to play the Van Hal concerto, and for me, it just completed the full circle of starting with him and now being a professional and playing with him again. And it just was a very happy day. So this is one of my happiest days. And just working with him in a professional level and preparing, that was fantastic.
What advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
Okay, so start practicing now. Start practicing, put the work. It's totally worth it. I always was like, I asked one time to David McGill if he knew anybody who had practiced a lot and put a lot of effort and didn't make it. And he said he didn't know anybody who did the work and didn't make it. So just put the work, and also be flexible, be open in your mind about because basically when you play in an orchestra or chamber music, you have to be a team player, you have to compromise intonation, articulate, you have to, so keep up an open mind and dream high, but be realistic. Dream high, don't lose yourself in dreaming, do the work, dream high while you practice, and never and always seize any opportunity that presents. And even if you think that might be too big for you, you never know. I say this because I had an opportunity to audition for Curtis when I was in Costa Rica, and I was like, they will never take, but you never know, you never know. Then you see other people and you're like, what? He went to Curtis? I mean, I'm just making a joke, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you see people and you're like, what? That person got that job? Well, it's because, first of all, you were not there to take the audition, so always go and give it a try, and keep your mind open about styles. And I always consider myself this, like Bruce Lee, the style of no style.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I just grabbed during all my schooling and all my life, even now, I just grab things that I am interested from other people all the time, even from oboists. I just talked to a piccolo player and a bass trombone player about breathing, because for contra you need a lot of air. So I just took him for a coffee and to talk about breathing, and the piccolo player about practicing the auxiliary instruments. She and because contrabassoon is so gnarly when you play that you can injure yourself. So always be very open, play for a lot of people, do what your teachers say, and study with as many teachers as you can until your head explodes, and then form your own style. And that's the style of no style, the style of your own style.
Leyla, thank you so much. This was such an inspiring conversation, and now all I want to do is go practice.
Me too.
Oh, happy October. Is that a good spooky voice? Send in your entries to the reed making contest.
The first one was like a little gremlin.
Follow on social media, do the reed making contest. They'll use on the next episode.
We had the joy of speaking with oboist Ruth Ballister, who shares her amazing journey with us. Jackie, let's end this scary nerd parade.
Oh, make reeds.
Ooh.